All right, everybody, welcome to your ReTeach video for the retake. So I'm starting backwards, starting with this question, since most of you messed up on this question. And you see how it's written, given parallel lines, S and T, and transversal U use angle relationships. So I made up my own question. Given parallel lines, E and F, and transversal D use angle relationships to find A, B, and G, which is in this example here. So if you guys want to write down this picture before I get started. All right, so hopefully you paused it and wrote down the picture. So to answer these questions, it's very important that you know your vocabulary. So I know that I need to solve for A, I need to solve for G, and I need to solve for B, right? So if I look at G, the relationship between G and 82 are that they are corresponding, okay? One's on the inside of the parallel lines, one's on the outside. They're corresponding. Corresponding angles are equal to each other. So I know right away that G is going to be 82. I also know that G and this angle are vertical to each other. Vertical angles are equal, so I know that I could say that 5A minus 18 equals G, because these are vertical angles. See, anytime there's an intersection, the angles across from each other are equal to each other. So I just found out that G was 82, so I'm going to replace the G with 82. And then I'm going to solve by adding 18 on both sides. And I find out that A equals 20. Okay, so just a simple two-step equation, 1, 2 steps, and you get your value of A equals 20. All right, the next angle I have to look at are these two angles. If I look at them, they're not equal to each other, but they're actually a linear pair. They're on line D, so that means together they're going to be equal to 180 degrees. So I can say that 4B plus 8 plus 82 would be equal 280 degrees, because this angle plus this angle are supplementary angles. Supplementary angles add up to 180. So that's what I did. I'm going to add them up to 180. These are what we call like terms, so they go together. Oops, that's supposed to be a plus. Then I do a two-step equation to solve for B. I'm going to hop on my calculator for a second. And I find out that B is 22.5. So that's how you were supposed to answer the question. And a lot of you did not do that. So that's why you guys lost points. So hopefully, now that you see what you were supposed to do, you won't make that same mistake when you take the test, when you take the test tomorrow, okay? So that's the last page. So that mirrored this page, whose answers were 35, and 78. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next page that you guys messed up on, which was this page. Again, can't put the answers with the actual test. So I made up my own questions. So figured not drawn a scale, which means just because this looks like an obtuse angle, we're not going to say it's obtuse. It may be like acute angle. This could wind up being 22 degrees. I don't know. Okay, it's not drawn a scale. But it says lines B and C may or may not be parallel. Justify your answer using angle relationship. Justify your answer means explain your answer. Explain your answer, which means all of these answers, even though it might not have said explain on it, you still have to explain. So let's take a look at the first one. First one says the measure of angle 3 is equal to 117. Can you determine 7? Most of you on the test said yes, because they're corresponding. Yeah, the real actual answer is no. And the reason is because we do not know if in B, which is this line, is parallel to C. You could have also said not enough information to find the measure of 7. But most of you were so gung-ho and you said they were corresponding. I had to give a 1 point because you understood what corresponding was, but I couldn't give you the full 2 points because the lines were not parallel. So hopefully you'll get that right tomorrow. All right, if 5 is congruent to 4, what does that tell us about these two lines? Well, 5 and 4, if you see, they're both on the inside. They're on opposite sides, so that means that they should be alternate interior. Alternate interior should be equal, so since it satisfies all the rules of alternate interior, you would say line B is parallel to line C. That's 1 point. Then you have to say angle 4 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. That's your second point. So I'm basically answering all these questions how you should have answered on the test. I just changed the numbers, okay? All right, letter C says 6 does not equal 2. Now, if you know anything about 6 and 2, they're supposed to be equal to each other because they're corresponding. So if they're telling you that they're not equal, well, if those angles are not equal, that means that they're not corresponding. So you would say line B is not parallel to line C. Angle 2 and angle 6 appear to be corresponding angles, and they should be congruent. And you can just end it like that, okay? Angle 2 and 6 appear to be corresponding angles, and they should be congruent. So basically you're saying that since they're not congruent, they're not corresponding. Since they're not corresponding, the lines are not parallel. Okay, so if you missed that, I said, if they're not congruent, they're not corresponding, which means the lines are not parallel. One of my biggest pet peeves about these questions is that you guys kept saying that the lines were not congruent. Lines cannot be congruent, okay? Lines can either be parallel or perpendicular. Okay, if they are the same distance, you would say they're the same distance, but we haven't even talked about that yet. Okay, so lines cannot be congruent. Again, lines cannot be congruent.